11th of October 2023, and as is usual, this is another Warrafak moment, and this is a serious one. We have to talk about it. And this is one of those situations where we need to be careful about the information that is fed to us. And the title of this Warrafak is the Big XXX Plan. And that plan has been worked on for a long time, longer than I am alive. This has been planned well back. The first objective of the plan is to get rid of the white race. And that is well published, and we all know about the Briekmerke plan. And it is a hell of a problem to execute that plan in certain regions, because there are tribal resistance against it. But you have to keep that in mind. That is one of the main aims of XXX, get rid of the white race. The reasons for it, I can do a whole skidmark on that, but the fact of the matter is, Klaus made it public. About a week ago I saw a video in which he clearly stated that in the final stage, governments will be irrelevant because the world will be controlled by corporates. Now you need to let that sink in and then think about what happened here in South Africa. And I'm going to use it as an example because I'm a South African. Look what they did in the pestilence. Think about it. The biltong shop in the mall was closed. The bakery shop in the mall was closed. The lady selling nuts and raisins and things, her little shop was closed. The community outlet for home bakers and home cooks was closed. But next door, the chain store was open. Why was that done? That was done specifically to get rid of the small businesses, because the small businesses is a major problem for XXX, because they don't control those small businesses. So they had to get rid of it. And a Zuma woman in the cabinet, she said it, that the pestilence will give them the opportunity to restructure the economy. And a lot of the guys that listen to it and not so well educated, they listened and it made sense to them and they were happy with it. But what they didn't take note of was how many jobs were lost. How many jobs? And then when the pestilence was over, very few of those small businesses came back, because the consumers was not programmed to go to the chain store. Why the chain store? Because the chain store are part of the global corporates. That is the thing that will control it. Another problem we have in South Africa is that the news media and everybody are making a big story and give big accolades to the so-called mega farmers. And these mega farmers and the farming operators, they always talk about this farming of scale shit and all of that. And meanwhile, as these mega farmers are growing, the small independent farmers are disappearing. So today we're sitting in a situation in South Africa that I'm not 100% sure about the percentages, but I take a guesstimate that 90% of the tomatoes that you buy in the stores and so forth are produced by one producer. The same thing with potatoes, the same thing with the chicken, the same thing with the eggs, the same thing with most of the meat. Everything is available through the supermarkets, in other words, the global chains, produced by one or two or three producers. So if the tomato growers decide tomorrow morning that they're not going to plant for the next season, 90% of the people in South Africa will not have access to tomatoes. Think about that. Same. Now look at the prices. Look at where the prices has gone for potatoes. Look at the prices of eggs. Look at the prices of chicken. None of that pricing could have happened if there were 20,000 tomato producers or potato producers or chicken producers. What they're doing currently with this bird flu thing is they're getting rid of the small operators. Yeah, the big operators are taking shots, but they're okay because they've got a secret fund that keeps them afloat. Because XXX needs that total control over the food production. Because if you control the food, you can control the population. The same with energy. In South Africa, energy market was basically very captured with Eskom. But that Eskom grip is beginning to slip because a lot of people that could afford it has moved over to solar for their homes and for their small businesses and things like that. And that takes them off the dependence list of Eskom. But it has another bad effect for Eskom. Those are the people that were also the good, loyal payers and consumers of Eskom. And those guys have now found another way out. They find it easier to become self-sufficient. And that's more of a problem for XXX. And we can expect that through their tribe, which includes the politicians, there will be new rules coming in that is going to get you that are now supplying and providing your own electricity in your home, they're going to find a way to penalize you for that. Now in South Africa we've got a major problem, and that is that a large portion of the population is fairly uneducated. So they're easily manipulated. They can be pushed by narrative. And if you look at the Malema tribe, that is a very dangerous tribe, because that guy is playing to the ears of this uneducated tribe of his. And he's using one of the power rods of XXX, and that is racism. They're using that because it has been applied successfully in many countries. And the racism keeps the population busy with one another, while XXX is doing their thing behind the scenes to get more control over you. In South Africa, we have a problem. I see a problem. And that is, there has been a generation that was bred for a purpose, the SASSA generation. Now you must understand that the bulk of that SASSA generation is tribeless, because they are without culture. They don't have the cultural backbone and the cultural ties. They're a cosmopolitan tribe that does not have roots. And that is a big problem. And they are also the people that take the brunt of the shots when businesses are closed down, because they lose their ability to find jobs. But XXX doesn't have a problem with that, because instead of paying the laborer 10 or let's call it 10,000 Rand a month salary, they now only make a donation of 350 to the ANC cabal, to that worker that lost his earning capability of 10,000 Rand a month, is now financed with 350 Rand through SASSA, which is a hell of a profitable thing for XXX, but it's extremely bad for the guy that lost his job. They don't care. They don't care about that. Now the question is this: this SASA brigade, what is the plans for them? Because you must understand, from a business point of view, they're actually a serious liability because they produce nothing, yet they cost that 350 Rand a month. Although the 350 is a lot less than the 10,000 salary that they had to pay, it is still 350 that is out of their profit. How are they going to get rid of that liability? You must ask yourself that question. How are they going to get rid of that liability? Because corporates don't like liabilities. They don't. And that is back to Klaus, when he refers to useless eaters. Think about that. You must think about that. Now, one of the ways that they have been slashing these liabilities, well, you could see it in the Middle East, is they create turmoil, social anxiety, and then a social collapse and riots and massive amounts of violence. And that gives them the opportunity to come in with their peacekeepers. And then that peacekeepers gets rid of the liabilities of the useless eaters. Literally by the millions. That's what they've done in other countries. And in the Middle East, it was very clear to see. Go and look what they did in Yemen. Go and look what they did in Iraq. Go and look what they're busy doing in Syria. You must look at that and think about that. Because that's why, look what they're doing now in Israel. They created that incident, and now they're killing the people by the thousands in the Gaza with bombs. Think about that. Now they've got this, they were planning the same thing for South Africa. That's what they're planning. Social unrest that erupts into violence so they can bring in their peacekeepers. Now in South Africa we've got a problem, and that is that BRICS is not going to allow XXX to take control over the Cape Sea route. BRICS cannot allow that because the Cape Sea route is vital to them. So the peacekeepers will most probably find themselves confronted by the BRICS. Get the fuck out of your country. I have spoken about it in other Skidmarks. So that will mean that South Africa is going to erupt easily into the similar scenario that you are seeing currently in the Ukraine, and which is now developing in Israel. There's going to be a hot war in South Africa between the XXX part and the BRICS part. And that is what I believe XXX is going to use to get rid of that 25 million SASA liability. Not 25 million rand, 25 million people. That is what is at play. So you must think carefully when you sit in that pavilion and you listen to Malema preaching racism. You need to think, what is his plan? In my tribe, the Boere tribe, they are renowned across the globe as being a fierce warrior tribe. And they're also not a tribe that is big on unified things. They are fairly factioned and very individual. But when they need to fight, they get into the trenches, do the job, and when it's done, they go back to their lives. That is how they operate. And they are extremely good strategists. And I believe that it is the Boer instinct that has been protecting the collective against being lured into a situation where physical violence breaks out between the races. Because I believe the Boer can feel instinctively that that will be a death trap. So they're avoiding it. Some of the other players sees that as a weakness in the Boere. I am of the opinion that that is a tribal survival instinct. They were blessed with it. And what is amazing is if you go really to tribal level, there's no problems between the races of the different tribes. They know that they need one another, and on tribal level, the conservative wings in the black tribes do not deny the right of existence of the Boer tribe. They don't. And they are aware of where the borders are of the Boer land, and they know all of these things. So it is my opinion that it is only the tribes that can survive the onslaught of XXX. Only the tribes can survive that. And I can see in Europe already, there are now signs that the tribes are busy waking up. And XXX knows the danger of tribes. They know it. And that's why they fight it with everything they have. They want this cosmopolitan, culturalist tribe. That's what they want. Because they can control those people. They cannot control the tribes. Look at England. England is no more England as we used to know it. England is a WEF colony, complete with a WEF governor installed there. Look at England. The Prime Minister, is that an Englishman? That's not an Englishman. Look at the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Cleverly. He should be named stupidly. He's not an Englishman. For me, a big, actually disgusting moment was when Scotland installed a non-Englishman as the leader of Scotland. When that happened, I realized England is fucked. England is done. I feel sorry for the English people, but you're done. You've been conquered by the WEF, and you can do nothing about it. The only way you can get out of it is you'll have to fight out of it. You'll have to go back to your tribes. Your tribes will have to fight themselves out of that shit. Yeah, because you are done. The WEF have wrapped England up nicely in a parcel and put a bow on it. And that is the reality. They're trying to do the same thing here in South Africa, but they've got a problem here in South Africa. There's too many individuals. There are too many tribes here that doesn't want any part of their shit. And many of those tribes are actually dangerous. They know the Boer tribe is dangerous. And the Zulu tribe is dangerous. The Zulu tribe is a known warrior tribe. So they're busy working around that. And how do they work around that? By sowing division with racism and religion. Take note of that. So, back to it. XXX says the world will be controlled by corporates. Tribal law says no. That's not how it's going to work. But the tribes has no power at this point in time because the political cabal has got all the control. And don't think you can vote yourself out of this shit. Don't think that. Because all those players in there are WEF soldiers, all of them. Now, how are you going to handle it? I'm not so sure that people are ready for that. But it is only the tribes that can get themselves and get us out of this. Only the tribes. Look at what happened yesterday. I saw a tweet from Alan Winde, where he clearly stated that they're not going to allow a referendum for Cape independence. And the Cape exit people were highly upset with me, and I got some nasty comments from them when I told them they must forget about that. Between the ANC and the DA, Cape exit will never be allowed. Never. Will never be allowed. Because both of them, the ANC and the DA, are firmly under the control of XXX. Both of them. And they're playing the same game, just in different jerseys. We've got the yellow and green and black team on the one side and the blue team on the other side, and that's it. But in the end of the day, they've got the same coach. And when the final score is out, they share the trophy. Doesn't matter who won. They share the trophy. They share the prize money. That is the realities. And you must understand that the only way you can survive is for the tribes to unite and the tribes to form alliances to fight this XXX takeover of our lives. That is all that is left. And I know there's many people that are very, very anti that. Mostly because they are scared of the discomfort that will happen. But unfortunately, we, the people, allowed XXX to get the grip on our lives that they have. We allowed them. And now we're in a very bad position. They basically got full control over us. In a large way in South Africa, they control our food, they control our energy, and that's it. And if they control the food and the energy, they've got the population under control. And that is the reality. But fortunately, in the tribes, there are people that is aware of this, and the tribes are beginning to wake up. The Malema tribe has got one big problem, and that is Malema makes them believe that the 65 million blacks is a unit against the 5 million whites. It's a unit. That is what Malema makes you believe, where the reality is that 65 million unit that he refers to and so fondly calls up to action, that unit is a wet dream, because that 65 million is speckled with factions, hundreds, thousands of factions, and many of those factions have got scores to settle with other factions. You know it. You're aware of it. That is why these cosmopolitan blacks, the Malema tribe, they get very angry when I talk about tribes. Why do they get so angry? Because they realize they don't belong to a tribe. They realize it. And they can do nothing about it. Because they rejected their own culture on instruction. And now they realize, oops, if the shit hits the fan, I'm on my own. And that doesn't sit comfortable with them. And that is why they respond so violently towards me for saying you have to find your tribe. We can see it. This is where we're speeding to in South Africa. This government is no longer a legitimate government. This state has already collapsed. It's being kept alive in the media, but on the ground, look at the military, it's gone. The police is basically gone. Look at transport, gone. Rail service, gone. The harbors, collapsing. Education, gone. Health services on their last legs. And we saw last month there was a big problem with the SASSA payments. Let's see what's going to happen this month. There are people on tribal level that are saying that the SASSA will collapse at the end of October. Now try and imagine that scenario. And then you must ask yourself, who is going to benefit? Who will be the beneficiaries if all of the people in South Africa start wiping each other out? Who is going to benefit from that? You must ask yourself that. Because the fact of the matter is, we, the people, the population, there's no benefit for us. And XXX has already decided we are useless eaters. They don't care about the dangers to the people if social unrest and violence breaks out and gets out of control. That is the realities. That is the truth. Those are the things that you have to keep in mind on this morning. Because you think that someone somewhere up there in government is looking out for you. That's what you think. That's how you've been programmed. But you don't realize you're only a commodity. You're a consumable. They're going to use you for what they need, and then they're going to toss you into the dustbin. And that is something that you have to make peace with. And I am telling you, the only way we can survive is the tribes must unite. The tribes must unite. There is the solution. There is the only outcome. Because tribes has got tribal instinct. And the strongest instinct in a tribe is survival. Now, that is something that XXX hates and actually fears. So look around you, look at what's happening there now in Israel. That was a manufactured problem. That problem was manufactured. It's not a natural thing, because if you look at all the logics, it doesn't balance, doesn't make sense. And then you must look at what's happening in Europe now with the immigrants. Europe are being overrun with immigrants. And look carefully at the immigrants, and you will find over 90% of them are fighting men, fighters. And then ask yourself, why are the governments of those countries treating those people so well? They set them up in hotels, they give them daily allowances. Those immigrants, those illegal immigrants that never contributed 1 cent to the economies of those countries, are getting benefits far greater than what the pensioners of those countries, the people that actually built those countries up, are getting. And the same thing is happening in America. Those people streaming in over the southern border, there's fighting age men. There's very few children and women involved there. The bulk is fighting age men from all over the world. Ask yourself why. The American tribes better wake up. They're going to get wiped out. Same thing is going to happen to them. Same thing. Here in South Africa, you must ask yourself, why the fuck are there so many immigrants here in the country? Why? It's not a case that we had a population shortage, but why is there so many immigrants here? And the hairy part is, the ANC cabal is part of that immigrant avalanche into our country. And you must ask yourself, why are they doing it? They do it because that's their instructions from XXX. And here is the big thing. Again, ask yourself this question. To which tribe does the ANC belong? Ask yourself that question. The same with Malema. Where is the Malema tribe? Ask yourself that question. And then, when you get to the answer, or you get no answer, you need to be worried. So let me stop this now and just say again, XXX is, their mission is to take all governments away because corporates will control the world. Unfortunately for them, Russia told them to fuck off into the blue yonder, because the Russians, look at what Russia is doing, look at what Russia is doing. Russia is promoting small farmers. Russia is promoting people to have vegetable gardens in their yards. Russia is promoting diversity in food production. Yes, they do have big commercial farms as well, but they've got millions of small farmers, and they look after those people. Why? Because Russia understands energy and food. Those are the two things with which you control a population. Russia is energy self-sufficient, Russia is food self-sufficient. And then with the sanctions, a lot of the big brands pulled out of Russia, and they thought the Russian economy is going to be hit hard. The Russians were actually glad when those global corporates moved out of Russia, because as Putin said it himself, it opened the market for Russians to play in that captured market that the corporates had. Now there's lots of Russians competing in that market. And if the sanctions is dropped ever, these global brands are going to struggle to get back into Russia, because the Russians have seen how dangerous it is to be dependent on global stuff. So the Russians are at this point in time the only white race. Yes, it's a diverse country, but they've got a lot of whites. They're the only country that is actually resisting XXX. And they are winning against XXX. And then there's people that want to come and make all sorts of talks and shit about China. Same thing. The Chinese is not playing with XXX. They're not. And a guy, I listened to some debates on it, and the thing is this: you cannot deny that Xi Jinping and his party has got a very good control over the Chinese population, which is a massive population. They've got a good control over that economy, and they are doing a lot to keep the Chinese population healthy and keep them happy. Because if that whole population should revolt, that party will fall overnight, because it's a numbers thing. And you must understand, yes, you can say they've got a huge army. You must understand that army is made up of people with tribal connections. And those soldiers, and it happened in many of the Eastern European countries, the soldiers decided, we're not going to shoot our own people. And that is the thing. So why would China, why would Xi Jinping hand that control over to Klaus Schwab? There's no way he's going to do it. So just get off that pram. The people that are in danger of the WEF is the Westerners. They are in danger because they were easy prey and they were gullible. So think about that. Survival will be in the hands of the tribes, not the politicians. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.